My wife called me while I was out of town. I figured it was to check in, maybe talk about the kids. Instead, she told me she wanted a divorce. Just like that. No warning, no build-up. That call hit me harder than anything I faced in the military. But what hurt more? I had no clue that this wasn't just a breakup. It was betrayal. And it ran deep. I was sitting in a crappy hotel room, watching the rain smear across the window when Rachel called. She sounded calm. Too calm. Told me we needed to talk. Which, let's be honest, is never good. I asked if the girls were okay. And she said they were fine. Then she said it. I think we should get a divorce. I actually looked around the room for cameras. I thought I was being pranked. We'd been married 9 years. Our twin daughters, Emily and Sophie, were just turning 2. I'd just gotten out of the army, finally back home, trying to adjust to civilian life and fatherhood again. We'd only been living together again for 5 months. I didn't even know we were having problems. And now she wanted out? I asked her why, and all she gave me were vague excuses. We're different now, she said. We've grown apart. But she never mentioned any of that before. No fights, no big issues, just this sudden detachment, like she'd already made peace with it. Something felt off. That call rattled around in my head for days. I tried thinking of anything that might have gone wrong. Yeah, I was gone a lot with the military. But I worked hard, stayed loyal, did what I thought a husband was supposed to do. When I got back, I jumped right into parenting and work, trying to pull my weight again. Rachel said she wanted to go to counseling. I agreed. I thought maybe there was still a chance. But it turns out she was already out the door just pretending to try. She stopped going to the sessions after the second one. Looking back, I think she just wanted to be able to tell her parents, I tried. Appearances always mattered more than truth for Rachel. I noticed she started spending more time at the gym, or running errands. I'd get home from work and she'd vanish, leaving me with the girls. Not that I minded. I loved those two more than life, but she was hardly around. She was looking better than ever. I mean, physically. Toned, glowing, putting effort into herself in ways she hadn't in years. It wasn't for me, though. That much was obvious. What hit me hardest wasn't the idea of being single again. It was that while I was out grinding away at a job I didn't even like, while I was staying up all night with teething babies and washing spit up out of my shirts, she was out there with someone else, sneaking around, spending my money, using my time with the girls as her cover. I didn't know who he was at first, but I had my suspicions. And as much as I wanted to believe I was just being paranoid, my gut wouldn't shut up. One night, while scrolling through her phone bill, I found the same number over and over, always late at night. I cross-referenced it with some social media breadcrumbs and figured out who it was. Derek, her best friend's husband. It made me sick. I didn't have proof, not yet. But I knew. I started pulling back, watching, gathering whatever scraps of intel I could without tipping her off. Meanwhile, she kept playing house. She'd smile, joke, act like everything was totally fine. But she was slipping, and I could feel something big building, like the air right before a thunderstorm. I didn't expect what happened next. It was a Thursday night, cold, raining hard. I was putting Emily and Sophie to bed when I heard banging on the front door. Not knocking, full-on pounding like someone wanted to break it down. When I opened it, I came face to face with a red-headed woman, soaking wet, breathing like she'd just run a mile uphill. Her hair was plastered to her face, mascara running, hands shaking. She looked like rage personified. She didn't introduce herself. You need to tell your wife to stay away from my husband. That's how I met Lindsay. She stood in the doorway, soaked from head to toe, yelling about my wife sleeping with her husband. I didn't even know her name yet, but she knew everything about what Rachel had been doing behind my back. And by the end of the night, we weren't just two strangers. We were co-conspirators. Her voice was cutting through the storm like a knife. She wasn't making full sense at first, half shouting, half crying. But I didn't need every word to understand. My wife, Rachel, had been hooking up with her husband, and she was here to drag it all into the light. Tell your wife to keep her hands off Derek, she snapped, fists clenched. The rain was coming down hard. Her soaked clothes clung to her like she'd jumped into a pool fully dressed. Hair matted, makeup running, shivering, but still burning with fury. This woman was all fight. I stepped aside and motioned for her to come in. No way I was letting the neighbors watch her scream on my porch like I was the bad guy. She stormed inside, still ranting, and I just let her talk. Sat down at the dining table, pulled out a chair for her, and waited. Eventually, the rage wore off. She collapsed into the chair, red-faced and gasping, her hands shaking as she tried to hold back sobs. Her voice cracked as she muttered, "They've been doing this for months." I poured her some tea. "The least I could do." "My name's Lindsay," she said finally. "I'm married to Derek, the guy your wife's been sneaking around with. And I'm losing my mind trying to keep this together." I nodded slowly. I'm Adam." We sat there for a while, not really talking, just trying to breathe in the middle of all the wreckage. She looked down at herself, suddenly aware of how soaked she was. "You got a sweater or something?" she asked. "I'm freezing." I grabbed one of mine and handed it to her. She started peeling off her wet shirt and bra right there in the middle of the room, like it was nothing. Not out of flirtation, just survival. I turned away out of respect, threw her clothes in the dryer, and handed her a towel for her hair. And for a split second, I caught myself noticing her. Not in a lustful way, just in a real way. This wasn't a woman trying to seduce someone. This was someone who'd just been gutted. And she was still trying to stand. She looked up from her tea and whispered, "I hate them." "Yeah," I replied. "Me too." She let out a bitter laugh. "I can't compete with your wife. She's in shape, blonde, perfect. I'm just me. I put on weight after I had my son. I look like hell." I shook my head. "You're not fat. You're not ugly. You're real. Rachel only looks the way she does because she spends hours at the gym every week. And she uses my money to do it." That seemed to light something in her eyes. Just for a second. We started talking more seriously. About what we knew. What we thought we knew. She said she'd suspected something for a while. But Derek had gotten sloppy. Hidden texts. Late nights. A second gym membership he forgot to cancel. And then she said something that changed everything. "I want to ruin them." That made me sit up a little straighter. Not just yell at them. Not just confront them. I want them to feel humiliated. Cornered. Just like they did to us. I stared at her, unsure of whether to be afraid or impressed. "Because," she added, "if I don't do something, I'm going to fall apart." I nodded slowly. "Okay, then let's figure out what we can do." And just like that, two strangers, betrayed, angry, exhausted, shook hands on a pact of quiet destruction. I told her what I'd seen, the phone logs, the texts, the late-night gym excuses. I also told her how Rachel had recently suggested counseling, but clearly just as a show for her parents. She cared more about appearances than solutions. Lindsay rolled her eyes. "Derek's the same way. He thinks because he hides his income through his cousin's construction company, I'll never get proper support if I leave. He thinks I'm weak." We both sat in silence for a second, the tea steaming between us. And then she said, dead serious, "What if we record them?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" "We track them. We find where they meet. We plant a recorder. We catch them." It was wild. It was risky. And it was exactly the kind of thing I was ready to do. When Lindsay first showed up at my door, I thought she was just another victim like me. But that night, something shifted. We weren't just talking anymore. The pain we shared turned into something heavier, something real. I didn't plan to cross a line. I just couldn't stop it. After we laid out the beginnings of our plan, recording, watching, waiting, Lindsay fell quiet. The storm outside had died down, but the tension between us hadn't. I walked her to the couch, handed her a blanket. She looked exhausted, emotionally stripped down to the bone. "You can crash here if you want," I said. "No pressure." She didn't answer right away, just gave me this long, unreadable look. Then she nodded slowly. "I'm not ready to go home. I don't want to see him." "Fair enough." I sat back in the armchair across from her while she dried her hair with the towel I gave her. She moved slowly, like her body was made of lead. I could see how tired she was, not just physically, but deep down. And still, I caught myself watching her. It wasn't about attraction, not exactly. It was recognition. I saw myself in her, angry, disoriented, betrayed, trying to hold it together for the sake of kids and pride and dignity, and failing. She noticed me looking and smirked weakly. What? I shook my head. Nothing. Just, I get it. That feeling. What feeling? The one where you start wondering if you're the crazy one for thinking this hurts so much. She paused, then nodded. Yeah, that one. We sat in silence for a while. The girls were upstairs, asleep. The room was dim, the only sound the ticking of the old wall clock and the soft hum of the dryer spinning her clothes. Do you ever wonder, she said suddenly, if you missed something? Some red flag? Like, were they always this kind of person? All the time? She sighed. I thought Derek was boring, predictable, safe. I didn't want fireworks. I just wanted steady. I nodded. Same with Rachel. After the army, I thought stability was everything. Guess we both gambled wrong. She got up and walked over to the kitchen, poured herself a little more tea. Her borrowed sweater hung off her shoulders, and for a second, she just stood there, staring out the window. Then she turned. I'm not trying to mess anything up, she said quietly. I know this is weird. I haven't felt like someone's actually seen me in a long time. I took a slow breath. You're not messing anything up. The space between us suddenly felt different, heavier. She walked back toward the couch but didn't sit. Instead, she stood in front of me, eyes searching mine. Then she said something that I still don't know how to explain. I don't like you, but I need you right now. It was honest, blunt, no games. She knelt in front of me, put her hand on my knee. Could have said no. I should have, but I didn't. We didn't say much as it happened. No sweet talk, no seduction, just raw need. Like we were both trying to burn out the pain with something physical. Afterward, she pulled the blanket over herself and curled up on the couch like nothing had happened. I sat there, still stunned. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even passionate. It was survival. I'm not going to pretend that fixed anything, she murmured. But it helped. I nodded. Yeah. Don't catch feelings, she said, smirking into her blanket. You're still a pain in the ***. You're not exactly easy to like either. And just like that, the tension snapped a little. The anger turned into something else, not peace exactly, but understanding. We were both broken, but at least now we weren't alone in it. As I cleaned up, I couldn't shake the feeling that we just lit a match in a room full of gas. And tomorrow the real fire would start. We weren't spies. We weren't criminals. Just two people who got screwed over and weren't willing to sit in the wreckage. If we couldn't get justice the right way, we'd find another way. And it started with watching quietly, carefully, until they slipped. The next morning, everything felt weirdly calm. Lindsay had already gone by the time I came downstairs. Just left a short note on the table. Thanks. Don't forget, they're not smarter than us. Just sneakier. I laughed when I read that. It was a weird feeling. Laughing again. That day, I kept it together for the girls. Played blocks, made pancakes, changed diapers. On the outside, I looked fine. Inside, I was sharpening my focus. I'd been passive long enough. Watching Rachel walk around like she hadn't betrayed her whole family? No, that was over. I met up with Lindsay again that night. She brought a small notebook, a burner phone, and something she said was even more important. Patience. We don't go nuclear right away, she told me. We collect. We wait. And then we crush them. We mapped out their schedules. Rachel was always going to the gym on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Derek had work hours that magically shifted based on which job site he claimed to be at. We both knew they weren't being that careful. Cheaters get sloppy when they think their spouses are too emotionally broken to fight back. I kept my distance at home. Rachel still acted like everything was normal. She made dinner, half-heartedly asked about my day, and I gave her just enough to not raise suspicion. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I was a ghost in my own house, and that scared her more than anything. Lindsay, on the other hand, started changing. She hit the treadmill hard, stopped drinking soda, cut out the late-night snacks. She started looking, and more importantly, feeling, like someone who had control again. We met a few times a week under the radar, usually at my place, after the kids were asleep. Sometimes we talked strategy. Sometimes we just sat in silence. But the connection kept growing. We also started working out together. I had weights in the basement. She brought a yoga mat. What started as basic workouts turned into full sessions, jump ropes, resistance bands, cardio videos from YouTube. It was weird, but that space became our safe zone. Our little rebellion bunker. She joked once, "We're turning into vigilantes. This is like if Batman had parenting duty and a mortgage." I didn't laugh right away, because the more time we spent together, the more I started seeing just how messed up things were behind her sharp tongue and sarcastic smile. One night after our workout, she stayed later than usual. We sat on the basement floor, sweaty, breathless, drinking water out of old sports bottles. "You think this makes us bad people?" she asked. I shook my head. "No, it makes us people who got tired of being used." She nodded, but I could see something flicker in her expression, like she didn't totally believe it. A few nights later, she told me she'd found something interesting. Receipts in Derek's truck. Expensive ones. Clothes, jewelry, stuff that didn't show up on their shared card. "He's either treating your wife like royalty," she said, "or he's got a second side hustle. Either way, he's leaving a trail." She wasn't wrong. Around the same time, I noticed Rachel had a new pair of boots, designer ones. She doesn't splurge like that. Never has. And definitely not without posting about it. So where'd the money come from? That's when Lindsay said it. "Rachel's hiding cash. I'd bet my life on it." It lined up. I had seen her on her laptop late at night, always closing the screen when I walked in. I never thought twice about it until now. Lindsay grinned. "Let's find that account." We weren't just gathering dirt now. We were building a case. It wasn't about screaming in their faces. It was about ending them, legally, emotionally, and socially. And we were just getting started. They thought we were sitting at home crying into our pillows. But we were tracking every move they made. And when we followed them to that cabin, everything changed. They were reckless. And we were ready. It started with a car wash. I know sounds random, but when I offered to clean Rachel's car, she looked at me like I just offered to donate a kidney. "That's sweet," she said, weirdly suspicious. Probably because she was used to me being checked out. Not helpful. Not observant. But I was observing everything. I wasn't there to clean. I was there to plant a GPS tracker. Meanwhile, Lindsay had been watching Derek's patterns too. She told me he often left work early on Fridays but didn't show up at home until late. Said he was working double shifts. We decided to tail them. The first Friday they didn't bite. Just normal movements. But the second Friday, that's when they slipped. Around 6:40 p.m., Rachel said she was going to a late yoga class. I smiled and nodded. She kissed me on the cheek like nothing was wrong. 10 minutes later, she and Derek were in the same car, headed out of town. I texted Lindsay, "They're moving." We followed at a distance, quiet, cautious, headlights off on the back roads. They drove into the woods, just outside the city limits, and parked outside a tiny beachside cabin. No neighbors, no cameras, no curtains. They were too comfortable, too stupid. I parked a few lots down and we crept through the brush. Lindsay had her phone set to record. It wasn't great footage, but we didn't need high def, we just needed proof. By the time we reached a window, they were already inside. Clothes on the floor. Wine glasses on the nightstand. No shame. Lindsay whispered, "Record it. All of it." I zoomed in, steady hands, dead stare. I didn't feel rage. Not in that moment. Just clarity. Cold and clean. As we backed out toward the car, I let the air out of one of Derek's tires. Petty? Maybe. But I wanted to buy us time in case they left early. On the way back, we didn't say much. just sat in silence with the footage playing back between us. Lindsay finally spoke. She doesn't even look guilty. I shrugged. Neither does he. We stopped at a little late-night diner. Ordered fries. Neither of us ate. She looked at me, eyes darker than usual. What's your endgame, Adam? I thought about it for a second. I want her to feel everything she made me feel, and then some. She nodded slowly, like that answer satisfied her. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out receipts. Found these in Derek's truck, she said. He's been buying Rachel things. Expensive stuff. But they're being careful, nothing on shared cards. All in cash. How? His cousin. The construction gig? Derek gets paid under the table. Barely any official income. And Rachel. She's hiding something. My guess? She's setting up an account behind your back. I leaned back, the pieces locking into place. She's not just cheating, I said. She's planning for after. Lindsay leaned forward, her voice steady and cold. So we plan for after too. The next day, we drove to Bellevue department store. Lindsay acted confused at first, until I led her straight to the makeup counter. What are we doing here? She asked. Giving you an upgrade. 2 women at the counter swarmed her, excited to work on someone new. They tried different shades, styles, tones. In an hour, they turned Lindsay into someone else entirely. Sleek, seductive, dangerous. She didn't look prettier exactly. She looked intentional. When we walked back to the car, she was holding that little black makeup bag like it was the key to a new identity. I told her the plan. Every time we go out together, you wear it. Every time you're near Derek, you don't. Let him think he lost the best version of you. She raised an eyebrow. And you think Rachel's gonna be jealous? She'll implode. Lindsay grinned. I like this game. They thought they were clever, sneaking around while pretending to be perfect parents. But we were already steps ahead. Every lie they told left a trail, and we followed it right to the truth. By the time they realized it, it was too late. After we gathered the cabin footage, Lindsay and I got quiet. Not because we were backing off, but because we didn't need to rush anymore. We had power now, and power meant we could wait. Rachel must have felt it. One morning, she asked if I wanted to revisit counseling. Said maybe we could talk things out again. I looked her dead in the eye and said, sure, let's talk next week. She smiled, like she'd won something. She didn't realize I had copies of every receipt, every message, every moment she thought no one saw. That same night, she tried something different. Came out of the shower in a towel, all casual, like it was 2015 again. I miss this, she whispered, sitting beside me on the bed. I didn't even flinch. You're cold, she said, a little edge in her voice. No, just done pretending. Her face tightened. She wrapped the towel tighter and stormed off. No more fake seductions after that. Later that week, Lindsay came over, pale and shaking. I thought maybe something had happened to her son. But it wasn't that. She had found something. A folder tucked inside Derek's desk. It had a bunch of printouts, mostly numbers, charts, bank statements. Some were old, some were fresh. But one thing jumped out. Rachel's name was on them too. What is this? I asked. Proof, Lindsay said. She's opening a new account. Offshore. She handed me a sticky note. Her login. I watched her type it in last week. I sat down at my computer and logged into a bank portal I'd never seen before. There it was. 12 grand. Hidden. Moving slowly in small transfers. Spread out over months. Clean. Quiet. Purposeful. Rachel was planning her exit. That stung more than I thought it would. She wasn't just cheating. She was lining up her safety net while letting me take care of the kids and cover the bills. She was setting me up to fail after she bailed. Lindsay saw the look on my face. Still want to go soft? I shook my head. No. I want to finish this. That weekend, things almost blew up. Rachel came home from one of her gym nights early and walked in while I was cleaning up the kitchen. She watched me for a second, then dropped the act. I know what you're doing. I looked at her calmly. Doing what? She stepped closer. Trying to make me feel guilty. Being all passive-aggressive. It won't work. You sure about that? She crossed her arms. You're gonna regret this. You think the court's gonna side with you? You're a part-time dad with a military history and a job that barely pays enough. I'll take full custody. You'll be lucky to see the girls once a month. That was the moment I stopped wondering if we could fix anything. You really just threatened to use the kids to punish me? She didn't blink. I nodded slowly. Thanks for making this easier. She left the room without another word. I met Lindsay that night at our usual spot, a closed-down rec center parking lot. She brought takeout and a flash drive. I found something else, she said. Derek's cousin's construction site? They've been overbilling clients and moving materials through side jobs. Are they stealing? Technically, yes. And Derek's handling the books. She paused. If this gets out, his cousin could go to jail. And Derek? He'd drag Rachel down with him. I leaned against the hood of my car. We're not even done yet, and they've already started digging their own graves. Lindsay smiled, not happily, just satisfied. We're gonna burn them, she said. One lie at a time. They thought they owned the night. Club lights, loud music, hidden secrets. But when we walked in, all eyes shifted. And when we dropped the photos on their table, they realized the game was never in their hands. It was in ours. 3 weeks after the cabin footage, we had enough dirt to bury them both. Emotionally, legally, and socially. Lindsay and I agreed it was time. Not to fight, not to scream, but to perform. It started with the dress. Lindsay picked out a form-fitting, emerald green piece that practically screamed bad decisions. She looked like chaos in heels, not subtle, not classy, just dangerous. That was the point. I wore a dark gray suit, no tie, black shirt. Simple, cold. We didn't talk much on the way to the club. There was nothing left to say. The plan was already in motion. The bouncer barely looked at us. When a woman like Lindsay walks up with that kind of energy, no one checks IDs. They just open the door. Inside, we headed straight for the dance floor. One song, then another. Lindsay stayed close. Eye contact. Smirking. We weren't pretending to be a couple. We were pretending to be trouble. I knew Rachel and Derek would be here. This was their Saturday night ritual gym shower party. Over and over like clockwork. Predictable down to the brand of cocktails they always ordered. We spotted them sitting in the back corner, at what they probably thought of as their table. Rachel had on a yellow dress I'd never seen before. Derek looked stiff in a cheap blue suit. They didn't see us right away. But when they did, everything stopped. Rachel's face turned white. Derek's jaw tightened. Lindsay grabbed my hand and walked me straight over, heels clicking against the floor like gunshots. I pulled out a chair for her and sat down across from them. Nice to see you both, I said, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Gym tonight? Looks fancy. Rachel blinked fast. Derek leaned forward. What the H*** are you doing here? I smiled. Just enjoying the night. I dropped a thick envelope on the table. Thought you might want to relive last Friday. Rachel didn't touch it, but she looked down as the edge of a photo slipped out. It was them in the cabin on the bed, no question what was happening. Lindsay pulled out a few more, spreading them like cards at a poker table. Each one worse than the last. Dirty, intimate, candid. Derek swore under his breath. Rachel finally snapped. You followed us? You're sick. I kept my voice calm. No, I just paid attention. You're the ones who got sloppy. She looked at me like I had just stabbed her. Not because I had, but because I hadn't fallen apart like she expected. I was calm, and that scared her. Lindsay leaned in. By the way, Rachel, nice secret account. Offshore? Smart. Until it wasn't. Rachel's mouth opened, then shut again. Derek looked like he wanted to run, but he just sat there, frozen. We're filing, I said. Adultery, full custody. And we'll be sharing these photos with anyone we feel needs to see them. Lindsay nodded. Like your parents. Your boss. Maybe even your church group. Rachel tried to laugh it off. You think this changes anything? The court doesn't care about who sleeps with who. But employers do, Lindsay interrupted. So do reputations. And so do Derek's cousin and the IRS. Derek's head snapped toward her. What? Yeah, she said. You didn't think we'd find the fake invoices? The hidden deals? You're not just a bad husband. You're a terrible criminal. He stood up, panic starting to break through the tough guy mask. We're leaving. No, I said. You're done. We stood up too. Lindsay locked eyes with Rachel and dropped the last photo. One of her laughing in the cabin, glass in hand, no shame at all. Thanks for making this so easy, Lindsay said, and we walked away. As we passed the DJ booth, Lindsay pulled off her heels and smiled through clenched teeth. Was that too much? I shook my head. No, that was perfect. After we exposed them in front of a packed nightclub, I thought they'd explode. But they didn't yell. They didn't even fight. Because they knew. They were done. And the next day they finally came to us, begging for a way out. The night after the confrontation, Rachel didn't come home. She didn't text. Didn't call. I didn't care. Lindsay stayed with me that night. Not for comfort. Not for anything else. Just to sit in the quiet. No TV. No music. Just the hum of two people who knew the war was ending, and they were the only ones still standing. The next morning, Rachel showed up right as I was feeding the girls breakfast. Her makeup was smudged. Hair messy. That perfect image she always held on to was cracking. Can we talk? She asked. I nodded toward the front door. Outside. She followed me to the porch, arms crossed tight across her chest. I'm not going to fight, she said. Good, I replied. You'd lose. She gave a half-laugh, bitter and small. You planned this. All of it. I didn't deny it. She looked down. I messed up. I know that. I stayed quiet. I didn't think you'd actually do something. That made me look up. You didn't think I'd fight for my kids, for my dignity, for my life? You thought I'd just sit in the ashes while you played house with Derek. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't think it would go this far. That makes two of us. Later that day, Lindsay got a message. It was from Derek. He wanted to talk. We met them in a public park, neutral ground. No yelling. No threats. Just the terms. I laid it out clearly. Rachel would sign over primary custody. No alimony. No fight over the house. The offshore account would be transferred back to me, or we'd share every detail with the bank and authorities. As for Derek, Lindsay gave him two choices. 1. You quit your job, leave town, and vanish. 2. We go to your cousin with everything, the fake billing, the materials you sold on the side, the client list we've got saved on this little flash drive. Derek looked ready to argue, until Lindsay pulled out the flash drive and showed him a few screenshots. He went pale. Rachel looked at me, pleading. Do we really have to do this? You already did. This is just the fallout. That night, I got a call from Haley. Yeah, that Haley. The blonde from the club. She'd seen us that night. Seen the photos. Seen Rachel's meltdown. She told me Lindsay had kissed her after everything went down. Bold. Random. Intense. I think she likes me, Haley said, voice shaky. I didn't know what to say. Haley kept talking. She messaged me the next day. Said I seemed fun. Invited me over. I froze. What did you say? She hesitated. I haven't answered yet. I thought I should tell you first. Smart girl. When I told Lindsay, she just smiled. You mad? She asked. No, I said carefully. Just surprised. She shrugged. She's cute. And she was there. She saw it. The chaos. She didn't run. That's rare. You think that's healthy? I don't care. And maybe that was the most honest thing either of us had said since this all started. A few days later, the papers were signed. Rachel moved into her parents' place with a suitcase and her shattered reputation. Derek? He left town. No warning. No goodbyes. Just disappeared one night, car gone, number disconnected. Lindsay got everything she wanted. Me? I got peace. Well, sort of. Because just when I thought it was over, there was another knock at my door. It was Lindsay, wearing lipstick, and standing beside her, Haley. I thought we were in control. That we'd won. But after it all came crashing down, something in Lindsay started to change. Or maybe she'd always been this way, and I just didn't want to see it. When Lindsay and Haley showed up at my door, I honestly thought it was a joke. Haley stood there smiling nervously, lipstick smudged at the corner of her mouth. Lindsay looked proud, like she'd just brought home a prize from a claw machine. I asked one question, "Is this a thing now?" Lindsay raised an eyebrow. "Would it bother you if it was?" I didn't know how to answer. They came in. We sat, drank coffee like normal people, except nothing about this was normal. Haley seemed unsure, constantly looking to Lindsay for cues. Lindsay, on the other hand, was relaxed, comfortable, maybe even happy. That night they stayed. All three of us. Same bed. I won't go into detail. This isn't that kind of story. But let's just say, it wasn't romantic. It wasn't tender. It was something else. Something wild and complicated. Afterward, Haley was asleep, curled up like a kid who'd had too much sugar and passed out from the crash. Lindsay lit a cigarette by the window, staring out into the dark. "You ever think we're the villains?" I asked. She didn't even flinch. "We didn't start the fire," she said. "We just threw gas on it." A few days later, Lindsay showed up at my place alone. No warning, no Haley, and I could tell something was wrong. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her hands kept fidgeting. Her voice was off, flat but with a nervous edge. "What happened?" I asked. She didn't answer at first, just sat down and stared at the floor. "I saw Derek today," she finally said. I blinked. "He's back." "No," she said quickly. I thought I saw him. It wasn't him, but it felt like he was watching me." I stepped toward her, but she flinched, like a dog expecting to be hit. I froze. "Lindsay." "I'm fine," she snapped. "It's just my head messing with me. It'll pass." She was lying. I could feel it. That night, she curled up next to me in bed like a child. No flirting, no fire, just raw silence. At 3 a.m., I woke up to her sitting on the floor in the hallway, whispering something I couldn't make out. I didn't interrupt, just watched, because for the first time I wasn't sure if I was helping her heal or if I'd gotten too close to the flames. Later that week, I found her in the basement gym, working out until her hands bled from the weights. She didn't even notice until I pointed it out. "Pain reminds me I'm still here," she muttered, wrapping a towel around her palms. "Lindsay," I said carefully, "maybe you should talk to someone, like a real therapist." She laughed loud, sharp, too much. "Oh, you want to fix me now?" "No," I said. "I just don't want to watch you burn yourself down." She looked at me for a long time. "You're not my savior, Adam." "I know," I said, "but I'm not your wrecking partner anymore either." That was the first real line I drew. The next few days she pulled back a little. No surprise visits. No calls. Just silence. I needed it. I took the girls out more. Focused on routines. School applications. Making lunches. The normal stuff. Then one night, there was a knock at the door. It was Haley. Alone. She looked heartbroken. "She kicked me out," she said. "Said I was boring. That I didn't have the fire." I didn't know what to say. "She's not okay," Haley whispered. "She scares me sometimes." I let her crash on the couch. And as I lay in bed that night, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself the question I'd been avoiding. What if Lindsay's revenge wasn't about justice, but control? I thought once they were gone, I'd finally breathe easy. But revenge doesn't give you peace. It just gives you silence. And in that silence, you're stuck with everything you became to survive. After Haley left, I didn't see Lindsay for a few weeks. It was quiet. Too quiet. Rachel had officially moved in with her parents. She'd signed the custody agreement, handed over the offshore account, and kept her distance. She didn't even fight back. Not once. Maybe because she knew she'd already lost. Derek had vanished. Word was his cousin found out about the missing funds. No police yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was hiding out in some cheap motel under a fake name. The girls were safe. I kept them on a routine, filled the house with noise, cartoons, music, laughter. I cleaned, cooked, took long walks, tried to forget. But every night, the house still echoed a little. One night, just before midnight, someone knocked on the door. It was Lindsay, dressed to kill. Red lipstick, tight black dress, eyes wild and electric. She walked in without a word. "I thought you were gone," I said. "I was," she replied, slipping off her heels. "But I'm not done yet." I raised an eyebrow. "With what?" She smiled, dark and slow. "Making sure Rachel never forgets." I sighed. "Lindsay." She cut me off. "I know. I've gone too far. I scare people. I scared you." I didn't answer. She walked up to me, looked me dead in the eye. "I love you, Adam, in the only way I know how, which probably isn't the way you need." I stayed still. She reached into her bag and pulled out a manila envelope. Inside, printed photos, timestamp logs, account records, and a copy of the divorce petition, the one Rachel had tried to pretend didn't exist. "You said you wouldn't show her parents," I said quietly. "I didn't," she replied. "But Haley did. I never told her not to." I looked down, then back at her. "You're not here for me," I said. "You're here to watch the fire burn." She smiled sadly. "Maybe. Or maybe I just don't know where else to go anymore." We stood there, not talking. Then she walked toward the door. "I'll come back when I can be a person again," she said. "If that ever happens." She paused, hand on the doorknob. "And for what it's worth, you were the only man in this entire mess who didn't lie to me." She left, and this time I didn't follow. Weeks passed. I focused on my girls, built routines, taught Emily to ride a bike, helped Sophie stop biting her nails, watched cartoons and made pancakes on Sundays. Rachel sent one-word texts to check in, always polite, never emotional. One afternoon, I let the girls spend the weekend with her. I needed the space. That night, I sat alone in my clean, quiet house when I heard another knock. I opened the door. There stood Lindsay. No makeup, hair tied back, hoodie, jeans. She wasn't smiling. "I'm not here to burn anything," she said. "Then why are you here?" She held up a box of cream puffs. "Because this house finally feels like home, and nobody should eat dessert alone." I let her in. We sat on the floor, eating straight from the box. We didn't talk much, just existed. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own life.